You were saying that some guys get manipulated by women. In my case, I don't know how that could happen, but at the same time, that's probably why it happens to guys, because they don't think it would ever happen to them.
Right.
What are some ways that you have seen that guys get manipulated by women?
Women are dangling the carrot of the possibility of sex. They literally are dangling the carrot saying that if you, let's say, take me on a date, if you go ahead and spend money on me doing this and that, it's usually like the woman's really not even that intimately interested in the guy. And I think the woman's greatest source of power that she has over a man is the power of intimacy. So she's literally just showcasing that power to him. And if she can see that the guy doesn't have the willingness to walk away if he feels that she's dangling that carrot in front of him, then essentially she has complete control over him to manipulate him for his time, his resources, his money.
That sounds terrible that someone would do that. Is that something that happens a lot? It happens all the time? Or because it would take so much brain power and brain energy to be able to do that. I guess for me, that is kind of hard to believe that women will go through such complicated schemes to get like a bag, like a fancy bag or a pair of shoes or a vacation. Just sounds so complicated.
Well, you have to keep in mind, Axel, that like these women have been doing this since at a very young age, right? Like whenever a guy expressed that they have a crush on her back in like middle school, high school, even elementary school, women naturally have been approached by men throughout their time since like pretty much they've been very young. So they've learned the game of how to be able to, let's say, utilize men to get validation, to get them to receive compliments. There's a whole variety of things that women can be doing to get all sorts of stuff. So manipulation is not just like, I'm gonna get a Gucci bag, I'm gonna get a bunch of money from this guy. Manipulation also can be just getting validation and getting like showered with compliments. So there's all forms of manipulation that women can do. And it's not that it's complicated. I think it becomes complicated for them when the guy knows their power. The guy knows that, hey, this woman's not really interested. She's not intimately interested in me. She's not authentically into me. She's just trying to like use me for my time and attention. Those are the complicated ones.
Do you think that's happening more now that women have kind of awoken up and we see how much men have manipulated women or used women? Because I think men, this is not like, this conversation is not about, oh, men are this and men are great and women are terrible. Not at all. Like, we're just talking about the factual truth of what happens in this whole dynamic.
Correct.
So I don't want to come across as saying, oh, women are terrible and they're manipulating men. It's just like some women will manipulate men to get what they want, the same way that some men will use women and be terrible and just use them for sex and just leave them hanging dry and just move on. So there is bad on both sides. Mm-hmm. Do you think that now we know more about this and everyone is talking about this because women have almost taken a stand to kind of defend themselves? And I hear this talk a lot of like, well, if men can be with a lot of women, then we should be able to be with a lot of men. Do you think that is like a modern thing and that's why now we're seeing this and we're awakened to this truth?
Yeah, I think the birth of the internet has allowed the idea for women to feel more, to express themselves more, essentially, with the idea that we should be able to have our own rotation of men if we wanted to, right? That has also led to the birth of the hookup culture in America, where a lot of women nowadays feel that they are entitled to sleep with as many men as they want. And I think essentially, like, men and women, the problem is that men and women are just not keeping it real with one another. They're not authentic with one another. And then actually a big culprit of this happening, again, thanks to the internet, is the red pill. The red pill is a source of information. I've already talked about this before in other podcasts with you.
Explain again this red pill thing, because I think that I understand what it is. I'm not quite sure that I understand it or agree with it. And it's almost like whenever someone mentions red pill, everyone is like, ooh. But it's just, if I understand it correctly, red pill, it's just this wave of talk and knowledge about how things work kind of in the actual world without these ideals of what it should be or what we hope that things would be like. It's almost like, okay, women like to do this, this, and this. Men like to do this, this, and this. If you push this button, you're gonna get this reaction. Am I getting a correct understanding?
Yeah, you're definitely on the right track, Axel. So I believe the red pill was created as a combative source against feminism. So when feminism started, I believe that feminism, when it was started, was on the right track. It was for females to have like more rights, to be able to vote and everything like that. But now it's gone off the rails where it's emasculating men and making men, it's probing men to be weaker. And this whole idea of like the boss babe, I don't need no man, independent woman type mentality has gone too far in my opinion. And it's not where it's a conducive masculine feminine paradigm where they're in harmony with one another. Now it's like women against men, men against women. So the red pill was, in my opinion, created to combat that. But also there were a lot of guys on the internet that were looking for answers as to why they were not good with women. The red pill does talk about feminism, and it does not like it goes in length and depth of it, but it exposes how feminism can be very disastrous for the American society. So the red pill, yes, like you mentioned, it does explain a form of reality that women are going for only high value men. Women have this nature where they always want to upgrade to the next best guy if they don't feel that the guy that they're with is that kind of guy that they're looking for. So when you're exposed to that level of reality through the red pill, it awakens you and makes you realize that life is not as I pictured when I was born, or how my parents taught me, or how society or universities or anything taught me, or the media even. The media is probably the biggest one that the red pill goes against, like all the Disney movies, happily ever after. And what also I think one of the benefits of the red pill that I've learned from being in that community was that you see like there's this whole thing, like I don't know if you saw the picture with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. There was like a new cover that came out where it shows Rihanna in front of A$AP Rocky. So A$AP Rocky's holding their child. So they have a child together. He's holding her child, and he looks very emasculated in the photo. And Rihanna looks like, I'm boss babe, I don't need no man kind of type mentality. And guys who are in the red pill, they can see that and they can read through it that this is an agenda to make men look weak. It's an agenda to make men look just powerless. And they don't have control, let's say, over their woman. They don't have control. Like the woman, she can do whatever she wants and express herself as powerfully as she wants and as dynamic as she wants.
But then the guy can't.
Yeah, he can't. He has to be like, he has to cover up his masculinity like this, guard his masculinity altogether, which, leads to a lot of complaints from guys.
Yeah, I think when you go to an extreme on either way, that's when you find the problems.
Absolutely.
And usually that's what comes out and gets the most attention.
Right.
I believe women should vote, be able to pursue their dreams, but it's not about women or men. I believe any person should be able to have all of their rights to be able to go and do whatever business they want to do, to pursue their dreams in whatever way that represents. I think the problem comes in when, and like you said, the media is creating this idea that you should be this boss babe. And at the end of the day, it's not that men are trying to keep you away from that. We don't care. Like I don't think there's any guy out there saying, oh, I'm going to put down each woman that comes up because I don't want her to like have a business or do this or that. The reality is, as a female, when you spend 20, 30 years building a business and trying to make all of this like huge career and like trying to conquer the world the way that guys would do it, chances are, just when you look at the stats and all the studies that have been done, chances are you're not going to feel as fulfilled. When you look at the averages, most women won't get fulfillment out of that the same way that we will. And that's why if you go to an extreme of like, oh, women should not have businesses or make their own money, yeah, that's kind of dumb. Like nobody's saying that. Now, women should go and be entrepreneurs and CEOs and go and conquer the world. It's like, you can try it. No one wants to stop you. Go ahead and do it. We're just saying you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. So I hate to see guys dwindle down and like become this little ball of a man that is afraid to like say anything or do anything masculine just because you don't want to be against women's rights. And I think that's the dilemma that the modern man finds himself in the middle of. It's like, I want to be nice to everyone, and I want everyone to know that I want to be nice and have equal rights for everybody. But I also want to be a man. I want to have my own company. Like, the woman that I'm with, I want her to respect me, to understand that I'm providing for her, that I'm protecting her. I don't want her to boss me around. I would listen to her. I would open my ears and want to fulfill each and every one of her dreams, as long as she's not bossing me around.
Right. The issue is right now is that feminism and what the Red Pill has offered has brought extremists on both sides. Both men and women have gone way too far with feminism and the Red Pill. And I think the problem is that a lot of guys, they're deathly afraid of the fact that if a woman is, let's say, too much of something, then they have no power over her. Now, here's the thing. What I'm looking for in a woman is a woman who's very cooperative and she's very submissive, but she also has her own dreams and her own reality that she wants to live life, but we are cohesive together. Right?
Now, when you say submissive, could you expand on that? What exactly do you mean by submissive? Because when you say that word, it could come across as something terrible. What do you really mean?
So my definition of submissive is a woman who is submissive to me in the bedroom, but also on a non-intimate level as well. So non-intimately, like when we're creating plans, she's not being a headache about it. For example, if I say, let's meet up at this place at this time, she's not saying, she's like, if we're having a first date and she's nagging me about like the location we're going, she's like, oh, this is not my kind of place. Like, I like to go more fancy places. Well, I mean, for me, if you want to go to a fancy place, then you got to show up for our first date. We have to have a good bond with one another before we can do something super fancy the first date, right? Okay. So planning, for example, could be one. If let's say let's just say she's also somebody who is, because naturally, like, women have been serving their men, right? And servitude is not just something where you're a slave and you have no rights and you have no, way to say anything and speak up. Because there's men out there who are leaders, but are bad leaders. So if he's a bad leader, she should speak up and say something that, hey, I'm not going to do what you're asking me to do because I don't feel inclined, because you don't make me feel comfortable and safe as a woman to be your follower, right? Because they're leaders and they're followers, right? So if that's the problem with like the Red Pill as well, is that there are men who take this Red Pill advice and they're not mentally secure up here. So then they will use the knowledge that they get from the Red Pill. These are like the extremist type. They'll use this knowledge from the Red Pill and they will use it to just boss a woman around the whole time and not allow her to be liberated in her femininity. Because there are a lot of guys, Axel, that they haven't liberated a woman from her insecurities, her fears of judgment, or her judging others, right? And one of the guy's primary responsibilities is to liberate a woman mentally, because guys have lied to her, they have used her for her body, and they haven't really been upfront and authentic to her. So if a man wants to have a woman be cooperative and be submissive, not only just in the bedroom, but on a non-intimate level as well, he needs to showcase to her that why should you be a man that I should submit to regardless? Mm-hmm.
I think that comes back to what is the level of this man and this woman. Right. And when you have disparity, that's when you have the problem. Right. And that probably will come from a guy trying to date outside of his league. So if you're a guy and you're going for a woman that is out of your league, something is not going to end up working properly. There's a reason why you're out of her league, bro. There's a reason why you feel like, if you feel that you're not at her level, it's not going to go well. You're going to feel most of the time that you are so almost like lucky, and you're going to have this imposter syndrome feeling about yourself that, oh my God, I cannot believe that I have her, but not in a good way. Like, for example, like with the person that I'm with right now, I feel so fortunate that I found such an amazing woman that I feel lucky to have her. But I don't feel like, oh, she's going to find a guy that's better than me and like I shouldn't even have her. No, I don't feel like that at all. I feel 100% secure that she's not going anywhere because I'm the type of guy that she wants to be with. Now, if you are not strong enough or secure enough in your own abilities and your own level as a man, there's no way that if you date a girl that is above your pay grade that you're going to feel good. And then I think that will tend to these issues where you're talking about, where most of the time she's not going to want to follow you because she doesn't feel that you're someone that she looks up to. She doesn't feel that you are secure enough that you will walk away if things don't work. Like, if you want to keep her at all costs because you feel like she's out of your league and you couldn't do any better, you can smell that, bro.
Oh yeah, women have been, like I said, like women have been dealing with all kinds of men since they were younger, and they're looking for a strong masculine figure. And if you're not that kind of guy that has a strong masculine presence and identity, there's no reason for her to follow you. There's no reason for her to meet up with you on a date. And that's where the manipulation thing comes in. Because she's looking at you like, oh, this guy's such a sucker. He keeps pursuing me and I'm getting like validation and attention. I don't even have to meet up with him. I'm just gonna have him keep chasing me through text messages. So who's really at fault here? Is it her fault or is it your fault as a man? I think it's really the guy's fault.
Yeah, I think I would take responsibility. And like in this case, the majority of people watching this are going to be men. So I'm just going to speak directly to the men and say, you have to just level up. Like, if you have any doubts or any feeling that this is happening to you, hey, the good news is you can change this, which is something that is really amazing. And I think I've discovered this in the last couple of years of my life. As men, we have such a good ability and opportunity to level up, bro. It's all related to your vision. What do you really want to be and who do you want to become as a man? And then your actions. Are you willing just to put in the work, go to the fucking gym, go level up at your job, your career, your business, go make more money, go make more friends, make more connections, and you can actually level up. With women, it's way harder because as a female, if you don't have the natural gift of beauty, there are things you can do to enhance yourself, but it's just way harder than if you are a guy. You know, a woman is born with her abilities and her beauty. A guy needs to go out and make his resources and make a name for himself. And I think that for guys that are trying to accomplish that, and if you're feeling like you're dating someone out of your league, it's a really tough place to be. But man, in 3 to 6 months, you could be a completely different guy. So what has been your experience? Because you work with a lot of guys that maybe lack confidence or lack communication. What have you seen in terms of like, you meet this guy and like 2 months later, he's a completely different dude because you help him tweak like a couple things?
So I would say that the biggest change, so your question is like, what's like the biggest, like how they've changed, or?
How have they changed, and what has been that trigger or that couple tips that once they start implementing that in their life, you see a huge increase in their self-worth?
Yeah, great question. I would say that the biggest thing that guys need nowadays, Axel, is the fact that they don't even realize how insecure that they are. Even a man who's high value, who makes 6 figures, has a great home, has a luxury car, is fit, even him can fall under these 3 main insecurities that are stopping guys from being even more high value mentally, right? Which is seeking validation, seeking approval, and people pleasing. Those 3 things are stopping guys from really harnessing the power of becoming that dynamic man that they want to be.
Yeah, and it's so sad when you see that happen. Cam, I have met guys that I've known for like a long periods of time that to me, they're like amazing guys. And then when you get deep and intimate and you start talking and like you get more details of how things are going in their love lives and all of that, it's like exactly what you were saying. They're insecure and they're trying to get validation from other girls and they're trying to get the women to pay attention to them, and they just don't feel like that they are enough for those girls. And I'm like, bro, are you crazy? Dude, like, you make this much money, you're super smart, you're handsome. Like, women should be all over. It should be the other way around. Like, there's something wrong here. And I love what you said of leveling up mentally, because I think that is the main place where all of this needs to happen first. And that is the place where you need to keep growing, because at the end of the day, whatever you have to offer in your mind will trigger your body to do something. Like, your body is a reflection of your mind, and your work and your career and your resources is a reflection of your mind. So what do you think guys can do when they realize this? What can they do to move towards progress in this area?
There's definitely some mental shifts. It's about reframing the way you think about yourself in life. And when you start to, like what I do in my coaching is why I help guys get to the root of the problem. So usually a guy will tell me, I'm afraid of approaching a woman. And I'll say, well, why do you feel you're afraid of approaching a woman? And they'll give me the reason. But usually that's a surface level answer. And it really has to do with some kind of trauma that's been, some kind of either childhood trauma or some kind of like trauma that's happened to them, like with women. And they don't feel like they can move on. They don't
like
feel
a
like,
bad experience,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
they talked to someone and they got rejected or something like that.
Yeah, and it could really hurt them. I mean, like there are all kinds of guys that have different levels of tolerance of pain that they take and how resilient they are. So that can stop you from essentially really developing yourself and being, again, like more being more empowered as a man. So, you know, we were talking about manipulation in the beginning, that women can manipulate men. And I think women can manipulate men, which they can manipulate men that are not in control of their mentality, right? So those guys who are getting manipulated by women, they're the ones that are the guys that are looking for validation, they're looking for approval, and they're people pleasing. Deep down, they know that this woman's really not into them, because I'll get Instagram direct messages all the time. They're like, Cam, this woman, I really like her. She's amazing. She does all these great things, but she doesn't pick up my calls, or she doesn't respond to me, and I respond to her immediately. I say, well, what makes her so good then? I mean, she's beautiful and she has like a great job and everything. So, but what does that have to do with you though? What does that have to do with your compatibility with her, right? If and her words have to match her actions. So if she's not texting you at the rate that you like, if she's not showing up to dates, if she's flaking on you, why are you still pursuing her? So these guys, this is where a lot of guys, they get caught up with the whole, she's, you know, beyond my league. She's out of my league, because they've never had success with women enough to know that there's a woman out there that is cooperative, she's submissive, and she wants to be around me intimately and not intimately, and she'll do anything. Because there's so many women out there, Axel, that'll gladly take a guy who's maybe not as leveled up with his mind just yet, but she sees something in him that is enough for her, right? But those guys are chasing after like the 9s, the 10s that are in these clubs in Hollywood or like, you know, in Miami, and they're chasing after those. And those girls are in a different mentality than like, let's say the average girl, for example, who's not a nightclub girl. Just a girl who works a 9 to 5 and comes home and she's just looking for a compatible man. So these guys, they've been brainwashed by the media, and they've been brainwashed by other sources of just information, that the women that they should be pursuing are the 9s, the 10s, the ones that have, you know, fake tits or some kind of like artificial body part about them.
I think it comes also to the availability of seeing those women on social media, but not really seeing them in real life. And this is something I was talking to, I think Eric came the other day, we were doing a podcast, we were talking about a little bit of social media and how that shapes our ideas and all that. And I remember I was talking to a close friend of mine that you know too, and his idea of what a hot girl is was way beyond what in my opinion, was like average in real life. Because dude, when you are following 353 hot models on your Instagram, and you open your Instagram and you see that on the daily, just like your brain doesn't know the difference between the reality of the world and the social media and the reality, the virtual reality that you are feeding it. So I think when guys have this idea that every girl that they go after should be this amazing, super beautiful model because they see that all the time, I think that's also a mistake. There's some guys out there who are delusional. There is no way that if you are not bringing to the table what's needed, that woman should give you attention. At the end of the day, man, like, I think we need to take responsibility. We see a lot of videos talking about women do this and women do that. And we started the video saying, oh, women manipulate men this way and that way. At the end of the day, it's your own damn fault. If you're getting manipulated, it's because you are letting someone else manipulate you. And if you're feeling that you're out of your league, it's because you are going after someone who is actually out of your league. So there are two ways to fix that, in my opinion. Either go and find a woman that is at your level who will do the things that you need her to do to be compatible in your life, or level up so then you can actually go after that high level women that you want and not feel like you're an unequal pair.
Right.
That's the only way I know how to fix it.
Right. I think leveling up to me is working on your physique. It's working on your mind. It's improving your quality of like food that you eat. It's everything. Your fashion. It's a whole thing. Like with my company, The Grand Male, we focus on a whole variety of things for men to improve. It's not just like about sleeping with women. It's about like developing this grand male mentality, so then you can see how seamless life becomes when you get over seeking validation, seeking approval, and people pleasing. And now you're in your masculine identity. And you mentioned the imposter syndrome, like where guys are just like, they're acting like imposters and they are concerned about, they're literally just trying to please the woman the whole time, which goes into the people pleasing category. And they're not really being authentic to them the whole time, right? So I think if men want to be able to date women more, they have to really put in the work. First of all, you have to take extreme ownership of your life.
100%. That goes to dating, and that also goes to your job and like all the things that you want to do. If you don't take ownership of it, you're going to be whining and waiting for someone to come and save you the whole time, and just nobody's going to come and do that.
Exactly. So like think about it. You guys are, this is the issue like right now, like guys are taking ownership of their health, they're taking ownership of their job, they're taking ownership of all facets of their life. But when it comes to women, they put the blame on women. Like, why are you blaming women when everything else is extreme ownership? What makes women any different? Like we're talking about, women also have responsibility to be a good person to us too, right? Well, we should be cohesive, more cohesive as a society. Like I here's a talking point I hear a lot often in my community is the modern woman is more damaged, is more broken than it was before. Like traditionally women have been throughout the course of time.
What do you think that is?
Feminism definitely has something to do with it. I believe that a lot of guys see, you know what the thing is, when guys complain that modern women are broken, right? I see it as like men feeling powerless to be able to lead a woman. Because back then it was easier to lead women because women didn't have jobs, women didn't make a lot of money. So it was easier to say, hey, I'm gonna marry you. And the woman's like, well, I need some financial dependency. So yeah, I'll just marry you, right? But now that women have the internet, women have other sources of information. So they're able to explore more options. That's what guys are concerned about. Guys are like, oh my God, women have more options. I don't have any control now. Women should have options. Women should be able to be liberated and be in this modern society to see what is the best outcome for them. As men, we want the best outcome for ourselves too. Like I don't want to be dating, a woman that is, unattractive and out of shape. I want to date a woman that is my type, right? Ideally what I look for. But you know what it's led to also, Axel, is that men are complaining so much about American women being so damaged through feminism, through the hookup culture, and how sexually promiscuous they are. Now what they're saying, and how non-submissive they are, and non-cooperative they are. So now what men are complaining about, there's this whole term called passport brothers. So what these guys do, passport bros is the nickname for it, but what guys do are now traveling overseas to, let's say, countries like Colombia, Mexico, to Dominican Republic, whatever, Ukraine, any of these countries internationally, because the women are more submissive, they're more feminine, they don't follow, let's say, the feminist paradigm. So a lot of guys are just doing that to as a scapegoat to get away from women, American women, because women are not cooperative and submissive.
Well, the moment, if you're an American and you travel to one of those countries, your income just went up like 20x. So basically what you're doing is like you're cheating the system, which must feel really nice. It's almost like all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire when you roll up into Colombia and you come in with $5,000. Like if you try to do that here in LA, it's gonna last you like 2 days. So that's interesting. I definitely saw a lot of that because I grew up in Cuba. So you have beautiful women who have very hard lives, and then you have a guy like a middle-aged white dude comes from Spain and he has money to spend, so he would get any women that he would want to get because he could provide for them. That is very sad, but I don't think that's a solution. Like long term, how is that going to be a solution for you? I promise you, bro, You go to Colombia, you marry a Colombian chick, you bring her to America, game over. Like, it's all going back to you have to hold your own. You're gonna have to level up at some point. There's no cheat codes. And I think when people talk about all of this red pill and all of that information, I don't know much about it. It does sounds like this cult that if you join this cult and you get this information, then you're gonna manipulate women and be able to like sleep with whomever. At the end of the day, you have to level up and be like a high quality guy, and it's all in your hands. It doesn't matter how much pickup lines you learn. Like, the end goal of this should be, I need to level up as a man so I can find the amazing woman that I want and be able to wow her, sweep her from her feet, and make her feel secure, loved, appreciated, and feel respect for me because I'm a badass. I think that's what everyone should frame their life around, instead of trying to find this shortcut of like, how do I trick women to have sex with me because I haven't been with anyone? Like, tricking someone, why would you even want that?
And that's why there's a term called trick, where literally like tricks are guys who manipulate or pretty much like paying for a woman to have like sex with them essentially. So you're just, and that's what guys who have to resort to their resources as a form of game to communicate with the woman. And when I talk about game, it's not just about like sleeping with women, it's about the game of life, right? So, but guys in the red pill and other pickup communities, they use game as like how you talk to a woman. Like, what's the strategy you use to talk to a woman and get her to be intimate with you and have her, let's say, be cooperative and submissive to you. So a guy who has bad game is a guy who, you know, lacks like a lot of qualities of a high value man, a guy who cannot be able to get intimate with any woman that he meets. So that's a guy with bad game. Now, it's funny because you're mentioning like, it's like cheating the system. Like if a guy goes to Colombia, for example, I think of it as like a life hack. I don't think it's necessarily cheating. I think you're a cheater if you go to Colombia and you're doing the same thing as you've been doing in America, which is lying to women and manipulating women and being judgmental of women. Then that's essentially cheating to get her to like sleep with you, right? Mm-hmm. But like, I'm a traveler. I do a lot of business traveling, and I have clients from all over the world that hire me to go travel and help them prep for private coaching, which is one of the perks of my job, which I love the most. Mm-hmm. Now, I go to Colombia quite often, and the women in Colombia are absolutely beautiful. And that's, I mean, the stereotype is very true, and it's a great stereotype also. The women are very beautiful. Now, when I go there, I don't change my identity because it's a Colombian woman. I don't change my identity because the women are just more beautiful. I am who I am. I'm Grand Cam in America as I am Grand Cam in Colombia. I'm Grand Cam in Cyprus. I'm Grand Cam in anywhere of the world. Right? So when women feel the energy and the authenticity and the vibe that I bring to them, they just like me for my identity and for my personality, for my masculinity. And that's what makes a woman want to be cooperative, to hang out with me, to be submissive in the bedroom, to be submissive outside the bedroom, right? So what guys are, like these passport brothers, not all passport brothers are like this, but I think I don't know if it's the majority, but I think there's just a lot of guys that take it the wrong way, meaning that they will just get their passport and they use, it's like, you know what it's like? A guy saying like, okay, I'm gonna avoid exercising and hitting the gym and doing dieting, and I'm just gonna go take these weight loss pills and lose weight. Now, you might lose weight from a weight loss pill, but then you're literally gonna be like a trampoline, or what is it called? Like the slinky. It's like a slinky. So you know how slinky, you expand it and it goes back in, right? So you will, or it's like a yo-yo. Like you'll literally yo-yo. That's what a whole yo-yo situation is when someone is like trying to lose weight. So you will go ahead and take these weight loss pills. You've lost the weight, but then you haven't developed the habits to be healthier. You will still have those late night cravings. You're still addicted to sugar or whatever the case may be. So now bring it back to men and women. What these guys, not all passport brothers are like this, but there are a good majority of guys who will say, okay, I can't get American women here because they're, you know, feminists and they're not cooperative and they're not submissive. So then they go to Colombia. If you're a loser in America, you're a loser in Colombia. There's no difference, right? You're the same person. You think women in Colombia, like they can't smell a loser? Like all of a sudden, like they have so many guys from all over the world that approach them. And Colombian girls know that they're sought after. They're not dumb. So they're like, oh yeah, look at this loser trying to hit on me. Right? So if you haven't developed the mentality of being in your masculine identity, then it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to be a lost cause. So that's why, like, when I go to Colombia or anywhere in the world, I'm the same person. I can still get women in any country I go to. I just express myself authentically, naturally, seductively, and with the mentalities I teach my students, which is the I am sex mentality, I'm your liberator mentality, I'm your protector mentality, I will never judge you for your past mentality. When I teach this to my students, women, they've never heard any of these things before. They've never felt energetically a man like this before.
So now I would love to talk about what you were saying of like approaching women and all of that. You're a master at networking, coming up to people, being charming. What are a couple things that you so you enter the party and you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I talk to everyone here and like make connections and make friends. What is the first thing that you are looking for when you go out to talk to someone? How do you open? How do you get the thing started?
That's a great question. So actually, one of the things I teach guys is like how to create a good vibe. I believe that if a guy was working with me and he were to ask me that question, it would start off with like building, first of all, like clearing insecurities, right? Because if you're gonna go network, you gotta have a great vibe about you. And what will hold a vibe from being more prosperous and being more illuminated is you being your thoughts saying like, oh, what if they don't accept me? What if they don't like me? And things of that nature. What if I don't have enough to offer, right? Now, I'm not where I want to be necessarily like as like a super rich person just yet. I mean, I have money, but I want more. I want more luxury. I want more of everything, right? Where I'm at, like I'm around like a lot of high value people nowadays. And the reason why I believe God has presented these people in my life is because I just want to show people a great time. So when I see something interesting about a person, right, I'll notice that, let's say, like, for example, if I saw you at a party and I see this suit, I'm like, I'm gonna come up to you and say, yo, man, that's a very fly suit. Looks good. What company is that? Like, what brand is it, right? And I would say, I like the patterns, I like the loafers, like everything you're wearing looks really good. And right off that, you're gonna be like, thank you, I appreciate it. And then I'll say, hey, what's your name, by the way? And then you share your name, I share my name. And then a lot of the networking that I do actually happens in Old Town Scottsdale in Arizona. And when I'm in these nightclubs, that's how I met a lot of nightclub connections, because I'll usually compliment what they're wearing, the vibe that they're bringing. So let's just say they're really good at like dancing to the electronic music, because I love raves and I love electronic music. And if I see a guy's like, he's dancing really well, or he just like looks like he's having a great time, I'll go up to him and say, man, you look like you're having an amazing time right now. And the guy's like, yeah, man, I'm having a blast. I say, dude, do you come to these clubs often? And then it just starts from there. So I'm not in my head thinking like, what if they don't accept me? What if they don't approve of me in my presence?
Basically, you turn it to them. It's like you put the spotlight on them and just you break through the wall right there and there. I think that's very interesting. I've definitely, like last time when we had one of the episodes, you mentioned that too. And I remember when you and I first met, you complimented my jacket. And then we talked about it on the podcast. And that's something that I've kept doing that after we talked about it. And it works like so well. I think with women, it also works, but I think it's just harder for guys, especially when you are getting yourself out there and trying. It's so hard for guys to like work up the courage to go and talk to a woman and like give a compliment like that, because you're thinking, oh, she's gonna reject me, or like she's gonna think this or that. So how do you shift, if you shift at all, from networking to like dating?
So this is a great question. So there's like a few things I want to share about this. Number one, for the guys out there who have not read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, that's an amazing book. That's going to be a good foundation to understand the power of networking and how to be more influential as a person. The next thing is this concept called PDE, which is primary driver emotions. So what is primarily drives this person to want to talk to you, or want to like provide like resources for you, or want to be like a woman want to be intimate with you, or a guy want to network with you, right? So when I'm going into these nightclubs and I'm studying every person that I'm talking to, like if I know a person's, let's say, a nightclub promoter, right? What is the PDE, primary driver emotion, of a nightclub promoter? Well, he wants women at his table. Now I'm not just a dating coach, I also do content creation where I interview people on the streets, right? And I came up with this system where I was like, well, if I'm interviewing women that are very beautiful and I have promoters as my nightclub connections, after I'm done with the interview, why don't I just send the women to the table? So now all of a sudden the promoters are seeing that I'm sending beautiful women to their table Women have beautiful memories at the table. They have fun, exciting, experiences. So who wins in this situation? All three parties, right? The promoters win, the girls win, I win, right? So that's like the PD concept that guys can use to figure out, okay, what is it that I can provide in exchange for this woman to want to be taking me seriously, right? Now, for a man to have the mental shift to not get so afraid of like approaching her, a man really has to understand like what is it that's like stopping him, number one, from like doing that, right? So you got to break down, you have to have the ability to break down in your mind what's going on and what's stopping you ultimately. The biggest thing that I've taken away from my clients who share that with me is that the guys who are afraid of approaching women, they haven't created a vision of what a successful version of them looks like. So oftentimes they're overwhelmed.
Of themselves?
Of themselves, yes. So here's like, again, the common scenario. I'm afraid of approaching a woman. I say, well, why? And they'll give me their reasons. I say, okay, give me all the steps it would take to, let's say, approach her. And they'll say, well, I got to be confident. I got to do this. I got to do this and that. I say, okay, well, that's overwhelming, right? And they'll say, yeah, it's overwhelming. I say, doesn't feel good, right? They're like, no, it doesn't. I say, okay, how about we do it a little bit differently? Tell me exactly what it's going to look like at the finish line. What do you look like? How are you dressed? How do you smell? How do you feel about yourself? And let's reverse engineer it. So the concept of reverse engineering, it defeats the overwhelming factor of feeling that you're not going to make it big or you're not going to be successful in your business or even be good with women. So I have a client that I worked with recently with my assistant coach where he was like, I cannot approach, like we're going to be going to Vegas together. I have like a Vegas retreat next month. And this one particular student was saying that I'm afraid of approaching the women where we're going to be in Vegas. I said, okay, well, I want you to write a whole paragraph down, like type it up and explain to me, what does it feel like to be successful with women when you're in Vegas? Just give me the Vegas one. Don't tell me what it looks like when you're back home. Tell me what exactly it looks like when you're in Vegas and how do you feel? What kind of clothes are you wearing? What does your masculine identity feel like? And what kind of like sexual things are you telling women? What kind of like, how are women looking at you? How are women like, are they holding your hand? Are they putting their arm around you when you're walking around? So when you do that, it's more inspiring and encouraging than thinking, okay, I got to do this. I got to say this to her. I got to do that to her. So the whole concept again is reverse engineering. When a guy reverse engineers in anything, in any facet of your life, business, for example, oh, I'm not going to make it big in business. Well, let's talk about how it feels when you have like when you're averaging 10K a month in let's say in gross sales, right? That right there seems more exciting for me to work up to as opposed to me saying, well, you know, I gotta get an editor. I gotta like go out into the streets and do street interviews and all that kind of stuff. That's overwhelming. But when you reverse engineer, it defeats that.
That's very interesting. I think for me, because of the work that I do in film and commercials and things like that, I have been around beautiful women, but because I'm not there to like get anything out of it, I'm just there to work. It completely changes the dynamic where I don't feel intimidated at all. It's almost like the opposite. Like they feel intimidated about me because I'm the eye that is judging how are they looking, how are their clothes. And it's so funny, Cameron, like I've been around the most beautiful woman you could dream of, but I'm filming. So like to me, there's nothing sexual going on. And but I still understand and I can appreciate that they're beautiful. The funniest thing is when I start looking at them with a critical eye, because I'm looking at you the way that I would, like I'm looking at the shadow, how it's falling on the face, and I'm looking at the hair, and I'm like, they completely change. Like they can feel that it's not a judgmental energy. It's just like a critical eye looking at them, and it completely changes the dynamic. So I think it's very interesting what you were saying of like thinking of the last moment, what the end result is and what you want. When you get to that point, what I would recommend, guys, is all you have to do is switch it from you to them. Just look at them, look at details, and just remember that if you stare for a little bit longer, they are going to feel examined. They're going to feel the attention. It's a weird energy that happens. They're going to feel that. And all of a sudden, you are not going to be overwhelmed anymore. you're not going to feel that they have power over you. The whole dynamic will change. You will be the one with your male gaze, you will be the one in control, and whatever you point out, they are going to listen a lot more than if you come up and you're like, oh my God, you're worshiping. It's very interesting. So with these retreats and all the stuff that you guys do, you travel to a bunch of different places. So I'm curious, do you find that women in different cities act differently?
I would say that culturally, women are going to be a bit different. Like I've noticed, I would say there's a big difference between Los Angeles and, let's say, Phoenix. But I mean, different countries obviously are going to be a bit different, in my opinion. I think in Las Vegas, so I'm preparing my students for Las Vegas next month, right? So March 23rd and March 28th, getting these guys prepared. We've been having monthly calls. I've been on the Telegram chats with them, like messaging them, making sure they're prepared for everything. And what I'm telling these guys is that, again, back to like what I was mentioning about the mentalities I teach guys, how to make women feel liberated in their femininity and liberated in their character. I'm telling guys, like, guys, I want you to understand that women are coming to Las Vegas, AKA Sin City, to have a great time. They're not looking necessarily for boyfriends. They're not looking for this kind of boyfriend energy. They want maybe an experience where they can be close to you, but not like to the point where you're gonna like ask them out or something like that. They're looking for, let's say, either a quick hookup, they're looking for a fun time, even if it's not really intimate, they're just looking for an experience. Because there's this whole famous phrase, girls like to have fun. Girls just like to have fun. So when I'm teaching guys to get prepared for Vegas is that, remember, these women have 9-to-5s. They have been working really hard. They're stressed. Maybe they just broke up with an ex-boyfriend. Maybe they're dealing with a bad relationship. They've been all, and women naturally just tend to be a little bit more insecure than men do. So again, like as a responsibility as a man is to help women liberate themselves from their insecurities, right? So if you can just make a woman feel very comfortable in your presence and she could just like say that I'm not the way I think about myself all the time. I'm just this woman who has been either misunderstood or sometimes I judge myself too hard. I'm too harsh on myself. So if the guy can just bring this energy where he's more exciting and fun, and then she sees that and offering more fun, exciting energy, now we have a cohesive group of people that are meshed together, and that creates a fun Vegas experience, which does lead to either a hookup or just like two friends having a really good time together.
Yeah, because it doesn't need to lead up to sex all the time.
It doesn't have to, no.
I think that is another thing that is probably keeping guys from getting more comfortable with themselves. For a woman to be open to have sex with you, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's not something we should just say, oh yeah, let's, that shouldn't be the end goal and be seen as something that is easy to get. At least in my opinion, I think that's something that we should value a lot, because that's the most valuable and beautiful thing a woman has to offer. So you should match it. Like you said, it has to be amazing energy. You have to make her feel incredible. She has to feel more beautiful around you. Like for her to be willing to give herself up to you, you should be bringing as much or more value to the table than what she's bringing. Now, with all of that said, if that is what you're thinking about all of the time, and that is the only successful outcome, it's just the reality of life. That's not going to happen all the time. So maybe changing that, and if your end result is to have an amazing time, that can happen so much more often, and that will allow you to be confident and comfortable, because you're not looking for the kill. You're not looking to add another person to your collection or what. You're not looking to just trick a woman to have sex with you. You're just looking for a great experience, a fun night, and have an amazing connection with someone. It doesn't have to end in sex. You have to stop like pursuing that as this holy grail. Because I'm pretty sure I've had this experience, and I'm pretty sure you have too, where you go out somewhere, you meet a couple people, you have an amazing time, and you feel as good, if not better, than if you just had sex with some random person and there was no connection and no real. You might as well just stay home, watch porn. Like if you're going to go out and you have struggles of approaching women, bring it down. The only good outcome that you need is that you have a good time and that people around you have a good time.
Absolutely. I tell my clients all the time, Axel, that if you want a woman to have a good time with you, you need to be liberated as a man mentally. And this is why I harp on like curing guys from any insecurity that's holding them back or any kind of unresolved trauma, because those things, they hold you back from having a good time. And that's the problem. They don't realize that a lot of I have some students that are like very like robotic, and when they're on the dance floor, they're frigid. They're like, and they dance like this. And I'm like, yo, I want you to be more vibrant, express yourself more. But they're like, I don't know how, I'm worried about getting judged. And I tell them like, listen, life is too short. Now that's a surface level way of going about it. Obviously we get very deep with it. But I tell them essentially that, look, life's too short. Here's some actionable steps you can take. Here's some reframing of the mindset you can do. So whenever you go out, like when I'm going to the clubs, like I told my students already, guys, when we go into the clubs together in Vegas, the first thing I'm doing is that when I hear the music and it's good, I'm gonna raise my hand and go bum, 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 bum. And I'm gonna go up to people like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? How are you doing? I'm gonna talk to everybody. Before we even get to our table, I'm literally gonna talk to like probably a couple of people. And I'm very social because I want people to really have an amazing life. Because I believe if I have an amazing life, and I feel like God has blessed me with so many opportunities and the resiliency that I have where I can pave the way for other guys, I want to spread that good energy to other people, right? And I don't need to, like, when if I see a beautiful woman, I have complimented women so many times and I don't expect anything from return. I just want to say, like, I remember last, like at the time of the recording of this podcast, it was Super Bowl last week in Arizona. And I remember I saw a girl with this really like beautiful red dress that was tight on her body and she looked so hot. And I told her like, hey, I stopped what I was doing. I was walking with my videographer and I had my street interview mic and I just stopped and I said, you look beautiful. Just want to share that with you. And she's like, oh, thank you. And I just like walked away, right? And she's like, wait, are you not going to talk to me? I'm like, no, I got to get going, right?
So I got stuff to do.
Yeah, I got stuff to do. So when guys see, Axel, how loose and how you don't have to be so uptight. I think guys just take themselves way too seriously. I would say I've been a pretty serious person, and I can get very serious in life as well. But I've also learned to like let go a lot too, and forgive myself. And I think when you learn to forgive yourself and you learn to forgive others, then you just have this energy that people, they don't know what it is, but they feel so connected to you and they feel safe around you. They feel like they can trust you.
So now that you were talking about forgiving other people and forgiving yourself, I want to talk about something that we touched on before, but I think is super interesting. Going through breakups and ending relationships, having to say no to people that once you wanted deeply in, that you wanted into your life, and now it's like you need to cut that loose and move on. What is your take on that? And specifically because of everything that we have been talking about, I want you to touch on the moment when a man realizes that this woman that they love so much, it's just not good for them, but they still have strong feelings, they have invested so much, but now they realize it's time to go. How can a guy process that and be able to just move away from a relationship that is not serving him anymore?
I think it's all perspective at the end of the day. Like if you're able to understand that you guys had some memories together that were good and you had some bad memories together, but the fact that God has blessed you both, or whatever you believe in, the universe, God, if you believe that it has blessed you with a wonderful growth opportunity and you now know that it's time for you to move on, essentially the best way to process it is to not allow someone in your life you don't want to allow someone to have control of your masculine identity. You want, like, even if this is like targeting both like men and women, like you don't want to let someone else control your identity altogether. Your identity is unique in its own way. You have your own talents, you have your own skills, you have your own weaknesses, your own strengths, right? But if we allow somebody to take over everything that we encompass and we're not able to move past it, well, then now you're just a slave to someone who has moved on from you, right? So if I was not able to, like, let's say, move on from any of my ex-girlfriends, then I wouldn't be able to teach guys how to move on. I wouldn't be able to help guys and do these retreats that I do and travel all around the world and help guys, with whatever they're looking for dating and masculinity. But for me, what has helped me move forward every single time is that I know that I'm a resilient man, and I know that the universe, will bless me with someone more compatible, because I feel like everything in life has a termination date. Think about it. Food has termination. Your coffee is only going to be warm for or will be hot for a certain period of time. People die, right? So everything in life has a termination date. So the moment, like, that's a liberating mentality right there. So if you know that your time has ended with that person, and you can accept that, it's people that they can't accept it, right? But if you can process it and accept it, that my time with this person has been completed, it's done now you can go find someone who's more compatible, more cooperative, more submissive, more exciting, more compatible with the things you like to do. So why should I ball and chain myself as a slave to somebody who's not compatible with me, who did not respect my identity? And maybe there's some things I did in my previous relationships that I could have done better, right? So why would I want to keep going backwards with somebody who we both mutually agreed that it's not right for us to be together, right? So peace and happiness is so important, Axel, right? So if a guy can understand that your peace and happiness is your number one priority, and I'm very picky about my peace and happiness. So if I'm friends with someone who's low-key disrespecting me, they'll say some sly shit, they'll say some disrespectful shit that like will be like, oh yeah, man, oh, you look kind of stupid in that outfit. And I'll challenge them. I'm like, what do you mean I look stupid? And they'll say, yeah, like your hat looks dumb and everything. I'm like, okay, so why are you disrespecting me? No, I'm joking around. I'm like, no, dude, I don't take that as a joke. That's disrespect in my opinion. And if they can't accept that, then I'm cutting them out of my life. But if they can correct their behavior and realize like, okay, with Cam, I can't do that, but with other people, you can do that, right? Essentially, like, again, peace and happiness. So that's why I harp on this so much, that guys need to, in order for them to process this and move on, your peace and happiness has to be a number one priority.
Yeah, I think especially your peace as a man, because happiness, I think, is more fleeting thing. I don't know. I think, at least in my life,
Wait, in what way is it fleeting for you?
you cannot be happy if you don't have peace. You can have peace and maybe not have complete happiness, but I think happiness is that you need. And I think I'm just comparing it, for example, happiness is like this high point where you feel like amazing. Peace is this baseline that you need just to be able to sleep and just have a normal, like, to function, you need peace. Like, we don't need to go party every night, but if we have bombs dropping and we are in war, like, we can't do that. So I think, and especially for me, because I come from a third world country, I've been through a lot, like, I'm so easily content with the smallest thing that if I don't have peace, I think that's more important. And also, I have a hectic schedule. I'm trying to accomplish a lot of things. There's no way that I can go after my goals if I don't have peace in a relationship. And for me, because I'm an emotional person, if my personal relationships are not at peace, I cannot function well when I'm writing or filming something or trying to come up with ideas. And I think having a spouse or a person in your life, a partner that brings you peace, is way more important than have someone that, because you can have people who bring a lot of happiness and excitement to your life. Let's say it this way. You could be dating like an amazing, super hot smoking woman that is incredible in every way, but if that is bleeding over the happiness and peace department, not in a good way, and she's causing you issues, eventually you need to move away from that because it's going to keep you away from everything. I think when we were talking about this topic, something that I wanted you to touch on is, okay, you realize that it's time to move on. You made the decision. What are practical things that guys can do? And let's talk about the communication, social media, phone. To me, I hear of people with different strategies and people who still talk to their exes and like still keep a friendly relationship. And what's your take on that? And what have you seen with the guys that you work with?
Practical steps that guys can take definitely to move on, Axel, is just going out there and dating. Now, for me, I feel like every guy is a bit subjective in terms of like what's their healing process like. I don't necessarily believe that a healing process means that I have to hide myself in my bedroom for the next 30 days and not talk to anyone just because I broke up with my ex-girlfriend or she broke up with me or whatever the case may be for any client, right? For me, when I broke up with my ex, like I just immediately started dating and I went on Bumble and I just started swiping and I was like, hey, what am I supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to?
Yeah, you're crazy on that, Cameron. When you told me that, I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. For me, I'm the opposite. For me, like, when something like that happens, I do need to go. Like,
No, but why though?
myself.
Why do? And what?
I think
what
it's
is
just my personality.
Okay, so it's a personality thing, right?
Yes.
So it's unique to you, right? And I'm not, and I'm not saying you're judging me or I'm judging you or anything like that, right? Like for me, let's look at it from this perspective, right? If you want to present a documentary that you create, because you're a filmmaker, you present a documentary to a film festival and they say no. I mean, are you going to go like lock yourself up in your room in like 30 days and say like, no, I'm not going to do it? Or are you just going to go out there and say, well, okay, you don't want to work with me. I'm going to go find someone who's more compatible for me.
You are 100% right.
Right? So it's the same thing with women. Like, why should women be any different from filming? And here's the thing. It's not that Netflix said no to you. If let's say Netflix, didn't
They
reject
actually said no to me on my first movie, and I did find distribution somewhere else.
Right.
And now we're right here. They said yes now.
Here we are now, Netflix, right? So it was not the company itself that said no to you. It was the studio directors or the head of the studio or whoever it was that said no to you, right? So that person just didn't see you as a compatible fit, right? And that's the same thing like when it comes to a breakup. When a woman has like told you that she doesn't want to be with you anymore, or if you realize that this woman is not compatible for you, then the next thing to do is to just go out there and start dating. But I think what's really disastrous for guys, I think it really depends on the guy's situation, because there are men who, let's say, are pathological liars and men who are very deceitful, manipulative. Those guys should not go date other women.
Well, no, if you're a piece of shit, you need to go fix your life first, like before you go ruining someone else's life.
Absolutely. So let's use the example, a guy is very authentic and he's a genuinely a good person, right? If that guy has broken up, I don't believe him locking himself in a room and closing his blinds and eating ice cream and ordering DoorDash like 10 days in a row
100%,
is good.
I would not say that. But I also wouldn't say go out and start dating like the crazy way that you go about it. What I would recommend is go and focus on yourself. Like take some time, and that time varies person to person. Take some time, lock yourself in a room and process what just happened so it doesn't happen again. Or the next person that you are in a relationship with, you can bring all of this knowledge and actually know why it didn't work out before. Let's say, however, you have to do your own work to get to whatever peace of mind you need to find. But I would either write down or try to think about what are the key things that didn't work. Maybe this person didn't respect me, or maybe this person didn't share the same future goals and values that I have for my life, so we're just not compatible. So now I know whenever I find my next relationship, from the beginning, you can go straight to the point. Is she going to value my goals and my dreams? Yes or no? And it's not a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes you're just not compatible. And for example, your plans that you have for your life have nothing to do with the plans that I have for my life, because we want completely different things, but we're still friends. It doesn't mean that you're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa. It just means you're not compatible. Having a woman that is compatible with your goals and the lifestyle that you want to live in the future is key. You cannot make it work if you don't have that. So make sure that you know what those things are. And then I'll just dedicate time to you, like level yourself up and just focus on you for a while. Don't go start dating right away. But the time that should take, I think it depends on the person.
Right.
But you're crazy. You just like...
Well, here's the thing. So let's use me as context, right? Like, why was I able to, able to move so quickly? I have mentors in my life, right? So I wasn't born with this like dating coaching skills. Like obviously I was born with some charm. I was born with some level of confidence. I was born with some level of understanding of myself, right? And my own level of what I thought was peace and happiness. But then I went through the whole series. This is back when I was like super into the Red Pill community and everything. I had mentors. They were not the best mentors, but they did help me. And I have to give them credit for helping me to a degree. But then I found like other mentors in my life that really were like the true masculinity mentors that I was looking for. And they helped me overcome the seeking validation, seeking approval, and people pleasing aspect of my life that I was like, doing a lot. So so here's the thing, you mentioned that it's subjective in terms of how fast a guy can move on and work on himself, right? So one of the biggest things I hear all the time from guys are like, oh, I'm gonna work on myself before I move on and find another girl. And I tell them, well, do you understand that if you have a mentor, here's the key, a mentor that you can talk to, right? You cut your lead time significantly. So why should it's like me saying, okay, I'm fat right now and I need to go and I need to work on myself and build a better physique. Okay, so I'm not gonna go on YouTube, I'm not gonna call someone, I'm not gonna ask my friends who are like, let's say, fitness experts or coaches, or find someone online to work with. I'm just gonna work on myself and just do this on my own. But then you're wasting your time. Like I don't like my time to be wasted, right? So I wanna know, Axel, I wanna know the answers to life fast. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to jerk around and wait for things, right? So if I've been rejected in any aspect of my life, I wanna know why I got rejected. I wanna know fast. So then I could correct it immediately and move on. So the reason for me I was able to move on from my past relationship is because I had mentors like in my background helping me get through the healing process, right? So of course I had to heal, but I realized again, I put in this perspective that life is way too short to cry and to like be sad and depressed or whatever. I think every man is entitled to feel some level of anxiety or I don't say you should go in a state of depression, but you should feel like a little overwhelmed and sad that something has happened because you shared a pretty tremendous amount of time with that person, if you did, right, with that woman. But again, peace and happiness, and when I'm talking about happiness, right, because you're mentioning your definition of happiness, how peace is more important. When I talk about peace and happiness, I'm talking about internal peace and happiness, right? So like me, for example, not having a Rolls Royce right now, I'm okay, I'm still happy, right? I'm blessed with the car that I drive right now, and I'm blessed to be able to fly anywhere I want, right? So I'm blessed with the simple things like you mentioned, coming from Cuba, right? I mean, I'm born in America, but I'm Iranian, and I know there are a lot of people in Iran right now that are suffering from the government, they're suffering from all aspects, from like inflation, it's crazy over there right now. So I'm very blessed, and I have a lot of gratitude for what goes on in my life. Now, Axel, if you have a lot of gratitude, for all the guys who are watching this, like if you just express yourself with a lot of gratitude and you're just blessed and you're present with like what's going on in your life right now. If a business rejects you, you don't get the job that you're looking for. If a woman rejects you, like if you approach her at the coffee shop, she says, no, I'm not interested. You cannot allow that to dictate your identity. You cannot allow that to dictate your peace and happiness. Like, why would you? That's just one person. And here's another thing too, Axel, check this out. For the guys who are afraid of rejection, right? They approach a woman and the woman says like, no, I'm not interested in you, right? And they're like, oh my God, I'm disappointed, I'm pissed, no girl likes me. I say, okay, let me ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does that girl really know you? 10 being a lot, 1 being that she barely knows you. And they usually say it's a 0 or it's like a 0.5, or they never say it's like a 3, right? I said, yeah, you talked to her for let's say 5 to 10 seconds, right? They're like, yeah. So I said, do you think that she knows your whole character and knows your whole personality? You will say no. Say, okay, so then why should you even judge her and place judgment on yourself because she said no to you? She only knows a little bit about you. Don't women have the right to say no to you? Well, yeah, of course. There you go, that's liberation right there. So that's how you can move on from situations really fast. Like, it should be simple. Life is simple, but it's overcomplicated when we don't have mentors in our life. Because I know you have mentors for sure, right? I mean, both you and I are very ambitious. We're very outgoing and we're very resilient. And what has made us the men that we are today is because we have mentors in our life. And of course, we put in the work, do our mentors' advice to get to where we are now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And I think the beauty of it all is that no matter how much you have loved, no matter how much you have suffered, no matter how hard that breakup is, there's something and someone so much better waiting for you, like at the turn of the corner. And it's unbelievable to think that, I mean, in my case, I've been very fortunate that I found love in my life. I was married, I went through a divorce, and I was still able to find amazing women to share my life with. And it's weird because like you know, when you're in that moment, you just feel so down and you feel so bad. But what you're saying of like just take the step and move out of that as quickly as possible, it's the best thing that you can do. What are you gonna do? Like mope around and cry for like 6 months and like work on yourself before you get out there and find the next person? Trust me, bro, like there is someone so much better waiting just for the perfect situation to like make you two meet, and hope is the last thing you should lose. But I do feel for those guys, and I think the reason I wanted to ask you is because we need to talk about this shit. Like, men don't hear enough that you can move on, you can get over her, you can go and find the next best person that is going to change your life completely, and it will happen. The sooner you move past that bad time, the sooner you're gonna find the amazing person that is gonna value you and see you for who you are, and you're going to grow out of that. I remember, like, I think about a year ago, I was going through like a tough moment in my life, and you and I talked about it. And then I remember my brother was the one who sent me this one video, and he was like, every time that I was having problems like that, he was like, forget about it, just go ask the next girl. Like, because the funny, like for me, I don't have problem approaching women or having women, like I have always had many women that want to be with me. So for me, that's not a problem. The problem is letting go when I'm trying to make something work. But again, that goes with my personality of always trying to make things work.
Yep.
So I was lucky enough that I had my brother to like, he didn't slap me because he wasn't around, but he was basically saying like, just like forget it, move on. Like this person is not good for you. It's just not good for you. Move on. And I was able to do it, and I'm so much better now that when time has passed.
If you think about it also, that what's really interesting about what you're sharing, I'm so glad you shared the divorce, because there are guys in your situation that still haven't moved on from their divorce. See, at the end of the day, anger is a choice and frustration is a choice. Happiness and peace is a choice too. Why would you allow anger to manipulate you? And if you have allowed yourself to be manipulated by your mind, then that is your own fault, right? Don't blame her, don't blame other people. I mean, look, you have to create a cohesive connection with that person regardless, because if you share if you share assets or you share children, you have to like work with that person as a team player as best you can with them, right? But essentially, you also have a life of your own to live. You have your own life to provide for yourself and for your loved ones, right? Why would you want to, again, allow frustration to manipulate you and to be like, for you to be a pawn in your game of chess when you can be the king, right? So a lot of guys, they really have to focus on understanding like, how are they breaking things down in their mind? Like, you know what's funny, you mentioned as well, is that you try to make things work, right? I believe I have that embedded in me as well, because we're leaders, Axel. Leaders, they try to make things work, right? And one thing I got from one of my mentors, he was telling me, Cam, you have a bit of a savior complex, where you're trying to like save all these people, right? Not just women, but clients as well. I have clients who I give them my all, Axel. I show up to the calls. I help them with like so many things. I give them all the exercise they need, all the videos for them to watch. And I even mention to them that I will help you continually, even after you pay me. I still want to keep helping you. But then they like tell me like, it's either they don't believe themselves, maybe they didn't see the value in my offer, they don't see the value in me, or whatever the case may be, right? I can't save those people. I can follow up with them, but if they don't want to get on a call with me, if they don't want to reinvest back into me, if they don't want to accept me to be into their life more, then that's the liberation mentality too. You got to let these people go and let them. And sometimes these people, they come back to you and they say, hey, you know what? I need help again. That happens to my clients like all the time. Like I'll have like a few clients who will, disappear, and then they'll come back like, hey man, I tried to do this on my own. It wasn't working. I'm like, well, look, daddy's here. Daddy will gladly take care of you, right? So I will always be here to help you guys, right? So I've never been that kind of person where like somebody would tell me like, look, Cam, I'm trying to help you. And I'm like, no, I want to do it on my own. Like I said, I want the answers fast. So if somebody is like legitimately reaching out to me and wants me to be there for them, so look, you're doing this for a reason. God has put you in my life for a reason. The universe has put you in my life because you see that there's something that's stopping me, that's holding me back. So I'm going to go out there and hear you and listen to what you have to say and take it into consideration, right? So if you can let go of the savior complex as well, like both of us, again, being leaders and being very ambitious and resilient, if we can just like both of us like let go of that savior complex when something's just not meant to work, better business opportunities, better women, whatever the case may be, right? There's other things out there.
So what are some things that you could identify when someone has that savior complex? What are the indicators that you need to be looking out for? Because I think there's a fine line between being a great man that is caring and wants to like take care of the other person and show up in the relationship. It's very easy to confuse that with the savior complex. So how can you identify or differentiate between the two?
I'll say when it comes to, let's say a relationship with a woman and let's say she's someone who, when you try to make it work with her during, let's say you guys are having like a fight or something like that, and she just says, I need to be alone and I don't want to talk to you, right? And you're like, no, baby, come on, let's talk right now. No, I can't talk to you right now, right? So being overbearing and being forceful to have her talk to you when she doesn't want to talk to you, you have to let her go, right? Like, meaning like, let her have her space, right? So sometimes people need space. So it's about understanding like the boundaries of the person. So this is why it's important to have a very firm masculine identity, have a very firm foundation of how you navigate through life. So let's say your lady who wants to keep talking to you and she wants to, I'm just, using anyone as a reference right now. Like if your lady wants to be involved with you and she wants to get in the conversation, but you need some time away to say, hey baby girl, like look, I really appreciate you. I respect you for wanting to talk to me, but I do need my space. How about we talk a few hours from now, right? So she has to be willing to let you have your space. And that can be vice versa for a man to woman. If a woman says like, I need to get out of the house for about an hour or whatever, you can't think in your mind, well, what if she cheats on me? Because we had an argument right now,
Well, if you're
right?
even having that thought, then that means you're in the wrong.
Right, but that could be a savior complex situation too, where a guy's like trying to protect her from like all dangers or something like that. That's like overbearing and overwhelming, right? So a guy should be able to be really okay with the fact that a woman needs space, a woman needs to be liberated, a woman needs to just have the freedom that if she can walk away at any moment, that is totally fine. And you're not going to be a creep, a threat at all to her. You're going to let her do her thing and let her express herself the way she wants. Because I always tell guys this, like, allow a woman to express herself the way she wants in front of you. That's her true colors right there. Mm-hmm. And if it's in alignment with what you're looking for, perfect. But if it's not, now you know where she stands. Yeah. So let her show her true colors immediately. Don't hide it. That's why I teach, again, the guys with the I'm your liberator mentality. I rather let a woman be authentic and upfront and truly honest with me fast. I don't want to wait 10 dates. I don't want to wait 1 year. I don't want to wait until a marriage. I want it now, fast, the first second we meet each other.
Yeah. Now, with you talking about things moving fast and all of that, I do see a problem, I think specifically in big cities like LA and where there's a lot of young people that don't want to settle. They're in that time of like dating around and all that. I do see a problem with people just moving on too quickly. And I think it can be harmful when you don't move on and you stay in a relationship where you're not happy for way too long, or you are not able to kill those feelings even after you have broken up and you stay in that too long. That is bad. But also this idea that I'm just going to keep dating, and like almost this capitalism mentality, the same way we get any food, any car, any clothes, and if we don't like it a little bit, we just throw it away and go buy a new one. I think that also can damage people's emotions and relationships, because I don't think we're meant to date 50 people in a year or anything crazy like that when you're having like real relationships. One thing is like you go off on a date and you have a fun night, and another thing is when you have like an actual relationship. What's your take on that?
Well, when you say like a real relationship, you're talking about like a monogamous thing?
Oh, now we're gonna get into something interesting.
Because like, here's the thing, like you're saying that a relationship is real when it's like what, like man and woman, or like
for me,
just a one-on-one thing?
For me, and this is something you and I talked about back when we first met, and we had completely different views on this, which I think is something else that we can talk about. For me, like I only want to be with one woman at a time.
Right.
I don't want to be with multiple women at the same time. So that's what I mean when I'm saying a relationship. I think we can.
Yeah, monogamy. Yeah.
Let's park that aside and come back to it. Tell me about this other thing that's very interesting, where you say, what do you mean non-monogamous relationship? What are we talking about?
Well, I mean, essentially, I think everyone's entitled to whatever lifestyle that they want, right? So if like a client of mine told me like I want to be in a monogamous relationship, I'll say, great, let's make it work. Let's get you into monogamy. Let's find a woman who's compatible that you want to commit yourself to for the remainder of time that you will be with her. But if a guy tells me I want to have a rotation of women or I want to see multiple women at once, I'll say, okay, well, let me ask you this, like, how do you think you can even manage it? What makes you so special that a woman, that let's say 2 to 3 women will want to see you at the same time, right? And these questions can also be said in a monogamous relationship too. But I think like the biggest thing, like I get a lot of crap for this from like a lot of people. They say, you know, they feel that a man having multiple women is a bad thing. And for me, I think it's bad when there's manipulation, there's lies, there's deceit, and the guy's not telling the truth. Now, if a woman were to ask the guy and say, like, hey, are you seeing multiple women at the same time? I coach my guys to say, yes. The answer is yes. You're not the only woman that I'm seeing at the same time. So she knows exactly what she's getting herself into. So there's no like, oh, you lied to me and you just wanted to get in my pants, right? So as long as the guy's like upfront and honest about that, then I don't see there's any reason why to say that a non-monogamous connection is not a real connection either, because essentially it's 2 people, a man and a woman, agreeing, having consensual intimacy, and also agreeing to hang out with each other on a non-intimate level too, if that's what they're having as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you can have a connection with a woman even if you're dating more than one woman at the same time. To me, that's not a lifestyle that I want. I don't want that for me. And this is something that when you and I first met, you were telling me about this and being with multiple women, and I was like, you know what? To me, I find more value, and I feel like I offer more value as a man when I could have multiple women, but then I decide not to, and I decide to focus all my energy into this one woman. I think that's a more fulfilling relationship. And I think it also comes back, I mean, I was raised in a way where that was the model. And I do agree with anyone that would say, oh, men have higher sexual desire and we would want to be with multiple women. I do agree with that. I'm not going to be stupid and lie and say, yeah, Cam, I'm never, like when I'm with one woman, I never think about any other woman. No, that's lies. Every guy on planet Earth, even when they have the most amazing woman, their male brain is still thinking about having sex with any woman in the world because that's how we are wired. But you can still conquer that and say, no, I choose not to do it. And in my case, I choose that because I believe having a monogamous relationship with one single woman at a time is way more fulfilling. Also, I don't know how you manage your fucking schedule if you have to date like 3 women at the same time, and then you're having sex with 3 women at the same time, and then you're having to go on dates and pay for all these things. Like, no. I think that's crazy talk, and you were defending that point, and I don't know.
It's a lifestyle. I think again, it's like a lifestyle choice. So it's, you know, for me personally, like I want to have a family and I want to have children. I want my legacy to continue. I want to be able to pass down my business like to my kids one day. You know, if I have, let's say, like a son who likes what I do and he feels that this is in alignment with the gray male is in alignment with his identity, then I would love for him to take over the business as well. I know that again, I think ultimately it's like a mindset thing. So if you want to dedicate all your energy and efforts into one person and that's how you see fulfillment through that, then I think that's a great choice. My issue is when people, I'm not saying you're doing this, but my issue is when people judge the lifestyle of, let's say, polyamory or whatever, like seeing multiple people. I think that's the problem. That's the problem because they judge it and they say, well, you know, these women are not, you know, they're not taken seriously. But I tell them, like, look, I didn't put a gun against their head and say, like, listen, be in a relationship and a non-monogamous relationship with me. I said, no, like, hey, this is who I am. This is how I express myself. And usually girls, they don't even ask me, like, are you seeing someone else? They can just tell based on how I carry myself and my energy that, like, this guy, okay, like, he knows what he's doing. So
yeah. I think when I think about that long term, like that could be a season in your life or whatever.
Sure.
But, you know, 10 years from now, are you going to be dating the same 3 women at the same time? Like,
Probably not.
No, like how is that going to
Seasons
work
change.
out? Yeah, how is that going to work out for them? I don't think for you have any problem because you're enjoying the company of multiple women at the same time.
Well, they're enjoying it too, though. That's the thing. Like, if they see, here's the thing, Axel. Like, these women, they're not. Again, I didn't force them to be in this, right? And I've been upfront with them and honest about like how I carry myself to this world, right?
But do you think that's something that they would want to keep going forward for like more than a year or 2?
So, absolutely. But here's the thing, though. I also tell them that if there is a man in their life that they want to take more seriously, they should go chase after him, right? Now, here's the thing, like my ex-girlfriend, you've met her before, right? There were multiple women I was seeing while I was seeing her, right? But I chose her to be in a monogamous relationship with her, and I thought that she would be a great candidate to be my girlfriend. And we spent 7 months together, right? And the experience was amazing being in a relationship, regardless of how it turned out, right? I'm still very blessed to have that connection with her back then. And I felt that, you know, being in a monogamous relationship with her did bring me some fulfillment. It brought me a lot of self-growth out of the whole experience,
Yeah,
right?
I remember like there was a before and after with you. Like we met and you were dating multiple women. And then I think you came for the podcast and you came with her.
Yeah.
And you had a more grounded energy to you. You came across more peaceful. You were actually happier. Like in a way, you were happy. You know, like there. I don't know how to explain it.
Okay, so I'm glad that you said that. So your interpretation essentially is that like I was like happier when I was in a monogamous relationship. I think for me, so this is very important because I don't believe that. See, I believe I had a false sense of happiness, not because it's a monogamous relationship, but because I believe there was a level of validation, approval, and people pleasing. Because obviously our relationship didn't work out. That's why we're not still together anymore, right? So I thought that the way I was, I think, leading the no, I don't want to say I think. I believe the way I was leading the relationship was to a false sense of happiness. Like I thought that by doing certain things, that would make her happy, that would make me happy, right? And that's a lot of guys are doing this right now, Axel. Like guys are in relationships right now that, you know, they think by just making the woman appeasing to the woman is the right way to go, and that is not the right way to go.
It's not. Eventually, you're going to regret it big time.
Right.
Because this is something that I have learned after being married for 10 years, divorced, and then in other relationships. The moment your mission is only to make her happy, you will fail. You need to want to make her happy and do everything in your power to make her happy as long as you are also happy. Otherwise, you will fail.
Right.
Because you will never be able to fulfill any person 100% and make their happiness come together 100% because everyone's happiness depends only on themselves.
Yes.
Including yours.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with monogamy either. So like if I had a monogamous relationship with my ex, and let's say, when I had my monogamous relationship with my ex, and let's say everything was like, I had peace and happiness internally, and I had no need for any of those insecurities we've been talking about throughout this podcast, right? Then I would probably still be with her if she was also somebody who still saw me as a compatible man to her, right? Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with a monogamous relationship. There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with a man seeing multiple women, but a man has to be at peace and happiness within himself. He has to be a leader of men and also be a leader for women as well, and being authentic in who he is. So if he lacks character and lacks a moral compass, then he's gonna let all kinds of people walk over him. It's not just women, business, life. Like life is gonna kick you in the ass and you're gonna be like, oh, and you're gonna like, again, cower in fear, you're not gonna be resilient, and no monogamous relationship is gonna save you. And of course, God forbid, if you get in a connection with multiple women, those women are all gonna grill your ass too if they see you as weak.
Yeah, I just don't see how seeing multiple women at the same time would help you long term. I think if you're doing that, listen, there's a season in your life, you're young, you're trying to explore, you're not committing to anyone, you're letting them know, hey, I'm dating other people, that's okay. Once you're past 30, you have a business, you're trying to make something out of yourself, and you're committed to become the best version of yourself, in my opinion, you're going to gain more stability and fulfillment out of being with one single woman. I just don't see how splitting your focus amongst this many people would also be compatible with building an empire or building something great on your business, and also building yourself and growing, and also keeping strong relationships with other people around you. It just becomes very complicated. I don't know how that would play out in a long enough timeline. But if you're going to try, maybe we'll have another podcast.
Yeah, but like if you think about it, like think about like a company, right? So a company has a CEO. You're the CEO of your company. You don't just hire one person, right? You have multiple people working for you. That's the simplest analogy to go with it.
But the company only has one CEO.
Right, which is you. You're the man. You're the CEO, right?
Like, I don't think for you it's a big deal. But I'm thinking, like, for those women, eventually that's not going to, I mean, I don't know how that is going to satisfy them long term. Maybe it's because I'm just seeing it from my point of view. I wouldn't want to be with a woman that has 3 guys. Like, no, that's never going to happen. Like, I will never, no. Like, I would not do that.
But how would you even find out, though? Are you going to ask her?
100%. Yeah, yes.
You're going to ask her if she's seeing other men?
100%.
What does that have to do with you, though?
100% has to do with me. I'm only going to be with that woman. I cannot share. No.
Okay, but that's like if you're going to be monogamous, you're saying. If you're going to go towards monogamy, right? But what I'm saying, like, I have guys who are concerned about a woman sleeping around with other men, but that really has nothing to do with you. If you're using protection and you're getting tested, then really it has nothing to do with you, though.
Yeah, I think if you are a guy and you want to be with multiple women at the same time, it will be a double standard that you want them to be exclusive to you.
Correct.
And you are not going to be exclusive
Absolutely.
to them.
Absolutely.
There I see how it would play out. But now, think about it, Cameron. If you have a woman that is sleeping with 3 men at the same time, nah, bro.
No, but how do you find out, though?
I would ask her, I would look her straight in the eyes before I even...
Before you're intimate with her?
100%. Like, this is me. I don't want to be with a woman that is also being with other men at the same time. I'm not into that.
But then, okay, so, but think about what you just said right now. Like, you're saying that she can't be seeing other men while she's seeing you, right? But you guys are not you have not committed to monogamy just yet, have you?
The thing is that that's how I would play it. Like, I'm a very black and white person.
Right.
Like,
right.
if I want a woman, I want to just be with her, and I want her to just want to be with me.
Sure.
Now, in the case that you're portraying, if a guy is seeing multiple women at the same time, I see how he will be open to them also seeing other guys. I understand that they will be okay with that. I don't think that that will turn out nice and bring you happiness and peace in a long enough timeline. There's some drama.
Okay, but here's the issue. Okay, but here's the issue I have with this. It's like you're saying that it's essentially it's seeking happiness and fulfillment through another person, though. That's the problem, because I feel that we should be peaceful and happy within who we are, right? So it doesn't. That's why I say it doesn't matter if you want monogamy or non-monogamy, right? The peace and happiness comes from within. So if at this stage of my life, seeing multiple women, it makes not that it makes me happy, but I don't have the willingness to like commit to just one person just yet because that person has not come into my life. Well then, I'm not gonna force it. I'm not gonna look for it just yet, right?
100% agree with you there, and I think that's why it comes down to like your personal opinion, my personal opinion, knowing yourself and knowing who you are and how you play. For you, probably this idea of being with just one woman, you're thinking, Axel, you fucking crazy. Like, what would you want to do?
Not even. No, I'm happy for you, dude. I'm happy for you. Yeah, thank you. We can agree to that.
Hey, as long as you're doing something that makes you happy,
right.
You can manage your schedule. I have a hard enough time managing my schedule. Even if I'm single, it's already complicated.
Oh, so. Absolutely. I think, again, like, you know, that's why for me, when people give me crap about like, oh, Cameron, you have like on your Instagram, you have girls that are half naked.
I did wanted to ask you about that.
Okay.
I don't think that's very smart what you're doing there.
Okay.
Posting all of these different girls. It's one of this, Cameron, there will come a time when one of these women will go bananas on you and they're going to turn your car on fire.
But how, okay, but let's talk about that. That's actually a good point. So you're saying that it could happen, right? But why, how so? What would make a woman want to like do something like that though?
You are running a very dangerous experiment. Let's just say that.
What experiment are you
Man.
referring to?
Think about it this way. If you are seeing multiple women and they are okay with you seeing multiple women at the same time, that psychologically, that sits a little bit on the edge of like being very open-minded and going on a route that is a little bit out there. It's not the average that everyone would find that brings them the most happiness and stability in their life. So these women, they are okay with that. Chances are those women are also going to be doing the same. So when they have been seeing multiple guys, you just have higher probability that some of those guys did something terrible to them, treat them wrong, and some bad shit happened to them, which gives you more probabilities that those people would have internal trauma and problems and things to deal with. You are bringing that to you and you're multiplying it by 3 or more on an extended period of time. You have higher chances that one of these girls is going to go crazy and go key your car and pop a tire and like go bananas. I'm just saying.
How so though? Because it has nothing to do with me. If I was a man who was treating her like crap and traumatizing her, then I feel that it's right for a woman to key my car and do all those things, right? Because it's rightfully deserved. But here's the thing, Axel, when I'm like a contrast between the inauthentic man and myself. When I'm being transparent and upfront and straightforward about who I am and I'm very honest with her, then she sees that piece of crap that is treating her like shit. But then she sees me, who's been kind, gentle, like, but also dominant in like in the bedroom, has been dominant in on a non-intimate level, but been masculine, right? And not over domineering, not overly like combative or anything like that to her, right? Just been like a solid guy, a solid man to her, right? She's gonna come to me and she's gonna say, you know, Cam, I really appreciate you. You know, if she wants to open up like this, like I've had girls that do that before, where they open up, they're like, hey, you know, I just want to say thank you for like being the man that you are, because a lot of times like I've dealt with really crappy guys and I feel like you're just like somebody who I can open up to, I can trust. And I know that we're not in a relationship, so I hope you don't take this the wrong way and think that I'm trying to be in a relationship with you. I'm like, no, please express yourself. Let me know. Don't even worry about that. Just I want you to always feel open and express yourself the way you like. And when they feel that energy coming from me, that they can, like, even though I'm not their boyfriend, but I can be a shoulder that they can lean on, there's no reason for a woman to do that, to key her car, to key my car and to, you know, torch something or whatever, or to like write some hateful messages. Now, if I did something very disrespectful, I lied, I manipulated, then that's rightfully deserved for me, in my opinion.
Now, do you think you were happier when you had everything was fine in your monogamous relationship? Did you find more happiness or more stability during that time than when you are seeing multiple women at the same time?
I think that that's not necessary. I like your question, but I don't think that's the way to. I don't think that's the way to interpret how to answer this. So what I'm trying to say is, like, was I happier as a man back then versus now?
I think not as a man. I'm wondering more as a person, like in general.
Yeah, as a person, right. So was I happier back then as a person versus now? Because if you think about monogamy and non-monogamy should have nothing to do with my peace and happiness, right?
100%.
Because these are choices that I'm making, right? So was I happier as a person back then versus now? I mean, now I'm way happier. I discover every year, every day, every second, even being in this podcast with you, I'm learning more and more about myself, right? And when I'm around like high value guys like you, Axel, and all the mutual friends that we share, I feel like I learn more about myself like every day, right? So it's a blessing to be on this podcast. It's a blessing to be your friend. It's a blessing to see like how where we are right now. Like, you know, like what's up, Netflix? You know, like it's great to see you like come up, man, because like as you come up, I come up too. Right? And I learn more about myself day by day, thanks to my resiliency. And if I wasn't resilient, if I wasn't the kind of person who was like, if I was the kind of person who would give up, I wouldn't be where I am now. So every time I see you at a podcast, I feel like we both have upgraded. And I see you wearing like a fly suit, and I'm like, man, like I love to see Axel like doing big things. And I know you're always on to bigger and better things, man. And same thing with me, man. Like I'm always on to bigger and better things. But again, my happiness has been is always restored every day. Because I always tell my clients this. I say like, you have a decision to make every single day. So this is your self-identity and this is your ego, right? Do you want to allow like your ego to win when you like every day when you wake up, your self-identity and ego is like this. Do you want to allow your ego to win and prevail before you go to bed? Or do you want to allow your self-identity to win and prevail before you go to bed? And everybody wakes up like this neutral every single day, right? And I think a lot of guys, they allow their ego, which is like getting emotional, feeling hurt, wanting to feel like throw a pity party for themselves. Those are the kind of guys that are still not, they think they're happy, but they're not as happy. They don't realize how much their ego is manipulating them and controlling them. You know, they feel like they don't even realize how much that's holding them back. So if you can just be in your masculine identity as a person or as a man, right? But be in your identity as a person consistently and work on it every day and conquer those insecurities and trauma, then it doesn't matter if you're gonna be in a monogamous relationship or non-monogamous, if you like swinger parties or whatever it is, you're happy within. And your sexual desires and urges will express itself because you now know, you have a clear identity of who you really are. So if you like swinger parties, then go to swinger parties because that makes you happy, right?
100% agree with that, Cameron.
That you're gonna be a swinger?
No, I'm happy where I'm at. I have more than I need, so
good. I'm glad to hear that, man.
So, man, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been super fun, and I'm so happy.
Oh yeah, Axel. Thank you, man.
Thank you for being vulnerable, for
being
open to talk about anything and everything.